One day, when I had to travel from Lagos to Abuja, I traveled by road, and on that journey, we had so many passengers. But there was this young lady who was sitting very close to me. She was feeling so uneasy and she started vomiting. She started throwing up. Part of her vomit even got to my clothes. I felt so embarrassed for her and embarrassed for myself because I was already stained from her vomit. So I was wondering, I even thought she was pregnant and she was exhibiting one of those early signs of pregnancy. But I later learned that she wasn't pregnant, that she was having motion sickness. If you are just joining us on Body Gist, I am Sister Ozo Augusta. I am a sister of St. Louis. I am also a nurse and a midwife. Do ensure you click on the subscribe button and turn on your notification so that you do not get missed out anytime we upload new videos. This is me saying thank you to all our returning subscribers. If you want to get to know what motion sickness is, what causes motion sickness, and how to save yourself or to prevent those embarrassing situations that come to our way when we experience motion sickness, ensure you watch this video to the end. Do not go away. We'll be right back. Motion sickness is the unease we feel while we are in motion or while we are in a moving vehicle. Either we are in a boat, a bus, a car, a ship, or while we are in an amusement park ride. It is felt when the brain cannot make sense from the information it is getting either from the eyes, the ear, or from the body generally. Let us not forget that the ear is an organ of hearing and balancing. But while the body is in motion, while the body is in a vehicle moving, this balance is often not maintained. The eyes and the ear, they send conflicting message to the brain. The brain, in interpreting it, gives back a response of confusion. That is why the individual comes out and displays symptoms such as sweating, feeling of unwell, feeling of tiredness, and more embarrassing, the person feels nausea and vomiting. When there is an imbalance between the message the brain receives, the inner ear balance mechanism, and of course what the eye sees as the person is in motion, this is known as sensory confusion, and the individual displays these signs such as feeling of dizziness, feeling of tiredness, feeling of unwell, headache. Then the person might also have nausea and vomiting, and the person might be breathing fast and be looking for air to be able to help him or her alleviate these signs and symptoms is feeling at that particular time. These are all the signs and symptoms that comes out as motion sickness. Motion sickness is caused by the act or action of being in motion, that is, you are traveling. Then women are more susceptible to having motion sickness than men. Then some individuals are susceptible to motion sickness because of their physiological makeup. It happens just because of the way they are created. Then if there is a family history of somebody who has had motion sickness or who have motion sickness in that family, individuals in that family might come down to motion sickness. Then children are also more susceptible to motion sickness than adults. What are the other triggers of motion sickness? One is pregnancy. Pregnant women are predisposed to having motion sickness due to the pregnancy hormones. Then the menstrual cycle hormones, so menstruation too can trigger motion sickness in an individual, most especially women who are menstruating at the time they are traveling. Then perceiving nauseous odors such as the smell of petrol or diesel. Then the smell of certain food such as some people, when they perceive boiled egg, it can trigger the feeling of nausea in them. Then if you perceive cigarette smoke too can trigger this motion sickness that people feel. Then even smoking itself can also trigger nauseous feeling in people, and it can cause them to have motion sickness. Then taking alcohol before you begin a journey or during the journey, it can also trigger motion sickness in an individual. Eating oily food before you begin the journey or within the journey can predispose one to motion sickness in certain individuals. And eating too much, getting too full when you eat during the journey or before the journey, this can also trigger the feeling of motion sickness in an individual. Then when you travel on bumpy roads that are rough, it can predispose one to having motion sickness. Then if you travel on a very long journey, you can get so tired on the way and it can predispose one to having motion sickness. Then some women who are on certain birth control pills, this can also predispose them to motion sickness. And lastly, some certain inner ear disorders can predispose an individual, can trigger the feeling of motion sickness in an individual. Motion sickness is the excessive stimulation of the inner ear that one feels when one engages in an excessive motion. Now, you know what triggers or predisposes one to motion sickness. Before you engage in a journey next time and before you experience this motion sickness, to save yourself from those embarrassing moments that we get from motion sickness, you may need to do one or some of the following things I'm about to say. If you know that you are predisposed to motion sickness and that you are going on a long journey, ensure that you get a very comfortable place in the vehicle, a place very close to the window to allow in ventilation and air to help you pipe or to bring down the feeling of unease you might be feeling during the journey. Then secondly, you need to fast from food. Even if you must eat, take minty herbs that helps to bring down the nauseous feeling people feel. Then if you know that you have serious nauseous feeling, don't eat at all. Stay away from food. And even if there are people who have food that are smelly in the vehicle, you need to sit very far away from them because these are triggers to motion sickness. When you are going on a long journey and you know that you are predisposed to having motion sickness, also ensure that you are not reading from a book or you are not peeping through the book or peeping through your phone. All this can trigger motion sickness in an individual who is already predisposed to that. Then if you are feeling dizzy, you are feeling headache or you are feeling unwell, ensure that you sit quietly in the vehicle and put your head on the backrest of the chair. Then close your eye. This will help to calm whatever feeling you are feeling at that time. Then stay away from cigarette smoke because it can also trigger the feeling of motion sickness. Then also stay away from alcohol, either before the journey or during the journey. Then if you have anybody smoking in the vehicle, kindly tell the person politely that you are prone to having triggers of motion sickness if you perceive the smoke. Or if you can move away from that person, please kindly do that. This will help you to stay away from having triggers of motion sickness. If you are going on a journey and your vehicle needs a refuel and you are at the filling station, ensure that you come down from the vehicle and stay very far from the filling booth. This will help to prevent you perceiving the smell of either diesel or petrol, which can trigger motion sickness. Then if you have to eat anything, ensure that you eat a light food that will not trigger the feeling of vomit or the feeling of nauseation in one. Then if you feel nausea or vomiting, take minty herbs. I've said that before. Take minty herbs. This will help to bring down the nauseous feeling one can get, and which can lead to motion sickness. When you are going on a journey, please be sensitive enough to know that some other persons don't have the same physiological makeup as yourself. So when you are eating, know the type of thing you are eating because that might trigger the feeling of nauseation in some other person. So be careful with what we eat so that you are not causing harm to the person while you are enjoying your own meal. And another way to prevent motion sickness, which is especially nausea and vomiting, some people take certain medications. But before you do that, ensure you consult with your doctor or your physician. Please do not self-medicate because of motion sickness. Consult them and they will give you the right guide and tell you the right things to do. We have looked at what motion sickness is, and we have said it is the feeling of unease or unwell one feels when one is in motion. And we have looked at what can predispose one or what can cause motion sickness for an individual. Motion sickness is not a disease, it just happens because you are in motion. Remember, if you are not in motion, it will not happen. And we have looked at certain few tips that we can engage in to prevent us from having motion sickness. And like I said before, please be kind enough not to be the cause of motion sickness for another person. And if you are in a moving vehicle and you see people experiencing motion sickness, you can also employ these tips for them and they will be able to say thank you. Ensure that you share this video. Thanks for watching this video to the end. Give us a thumbs up if you have found value for this video and keep following us on Body Gist. I remain Sister Ozo Augusta, a sister of St. Lee and your nurse midwife. Keep following us on Body Gist while we keep giving you healthy gists.